folks. Good morning. If you could all go ahead and grab your seats, we're about to get this thing rolling. What's going on, everyone?
Morning.
Thank you to all of you for who are joining us here in person, and those of us joining us online. My name is Carlos Cabrillo. I'm the executive director of the South Florida chapter of the Associated General Contractors of America. This is our August 14th, 2024 edition of our South Florida AGC safety session, powered by Milwaukee. So it's me representing today. So I had to come out with a Colombian shirt while it's still summer. Not like it's not always hot around here. So I want to say thank you to the team from Kelly Cronenberg. Kelly Cronenberg, what can I tell you? They're as good attorneys as they are hosts, and they do a great job. I want to thank Cedric and Andrea. I combined your names there. Cedric and Andrea are a fantastic team. They always make us feel welcome here. And we got a full house. So thank you to them very much. I also want to thank the team from Milwaukee. Milwaukee has been the title sponsor of these safety sessions for about 4 years now. They support our organization, not only with what we do at our events, but with what we do on safety, which is an incredible important part of who we are as an organization. That being said, I want to invite Jake Nardo up here. I want to hear about what's going on with Milwaukee. I hear they got some specials this month. So let's hear what's happening. Come on up, Jake.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And thank you to everyone for the time. Again, I am Jake Nardo. If you haven't met me, a lot of familiar faces. So hello, if I have. I am your local Milwaukee territory representative. So what I do is I come consult on job sites and essentially help position you guys to keep you up and ready and running on your tools, safety or accessories as often and as long as possible. So some of the things that we have to talk about today, just kind of the monthly update, if you will. I know we'll give the 2-month update since we weren't together last month, but right now what you guys have in the table in front of you is a Beat the Heat flyer. It's funny, you know, I already heard, oh, summer's kind of wrapping up. It's always hot, right? And so this is something we put together to help you guys out on the job site. Safety is stuff that you guys have to get, you know, it's mandatory on site. So we've gone together and we put some promotions to, you know, get you stocked up with some pallets of water, with some cool down station tents, or even some freezer with popsicle packs. So just let me know if there's any opportunities in that, if you want to work on that, and we can get really creative with the promotions as well, customize it to you guys. On top of that, I like to bring out N95 respirators. We have a lot of these, and we have a lot of ammunition. So these are currently going on BOGO right now. They're flying like hotcakes. So just let us know if you are in the respirator game. And then we talk fun new products, and this will be the last point I'll be touching on today. Duplex nailer and high cycle vibrator just started hitting the market as far as shipping to you guys. So if you want to demo any of those units, or if you have any guys on site that use them and want to see the new latest and greatest, get in touch with me. And last but not least, we're talking cooling. I got the new 18-inch brushless fan plug-in or battery over here by the table. So if you want to check it out, that is a new product as well that hasn't hit the shelves. But with that, thank you guys so much.
How long does the battery last on the sorry, flat. How long does the battery last on the fan?
So on a high output 12.0, it'll run on high for 6.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And that's 3 speeds. So obviously low and medium is going to be 8, 12, you know, you're looking all day.
Okay, great, cool. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you guys.
Very cool. All right. I also want to thank our other partners, as you see on the sign. Our program sponsor this year has been Beatty Tech. We're actually going to have their CEO out here next month doing a little bit of a longer presentation to go in a little bit more in depth on their product. But right now, I'd like to introduce their Florida representative, Gal Barak. Gal, come on up, man. Tell us what's going on with Beatty.
Hey, good morning. Couple of highlights. First, practically we are a face recognition access control that sit at the entrance of the site, and through a mobile platform, very user-friendly, offer you all the safety, compliance, labor management, the time in, time out, and much more. Just finished another fundraising, and we are the largest company in the field. To be very frank, the safety community is not our first target, but as you understand the ecosystem, we sponsor those events and the support of Carlos. We would love if each of you can spare some time on a Zoom call with learn a bit what we do. Started back in Israel, where I'm from originally. Then New York, we work with 7 out of the top 10 GCs up in the Northeast. And late last year, we started here and having some success, like the MSC terminal at the Port of Miami. Big project with our system and 3 turnstile, and many workers there. Others like Una residents by Oko, Turner, Antiapi, they just expand for the second one. They were facing delay, you know, because the sub were telling them that people are there, but they were having delay after delay, and now they added us to a second site, meaning they are very with, and some others, you know, obviously we integrate with Procore and Autodesk, but some others that are not looking for the spending the big bucks, having us as kind of ERP for the site construction, and you mentioned as a Pinnacle Housing, you know, a developer who are self-performed and others. So that's a bit about our highlights. The DOP is big in New York, and English OSHA is gaining more now. I saw that you sent an email about entering the site and everything that coming to compliance, safety, everything is very digitized, the orientation, the onboarding, and so. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Gal will be at our safety sessions from here on out. If you guys have questions about what's going on with Betty, please make sure to go find Gal and you can ask. Gal's met with a few of our members. I know you're working now with a few of our members as well. So it's we're happy to have you on board. We like sponsors that our members love, right? So we appreciate that. All right, cool. Well, I want to get to our presentation. I know that some of you here, we're going to have our fantastic presentation today. And afterwards, we'll have a little bit of a discussion on what's going on with the accompanied inspections, which seems to be unique to our market. So yay, so it's great to be the first. Today, this month's safety topic is how to gain executive level buy-in to build a strong safety culture from the top down. Man, that is, that's the dream, right? For you all. I know that you all, I'm always impressed at the diversity of jobs that the safety director has to do, the incredible amount of information you all have to have so that you can interact with your electricians and your plumbers, right? Each of them has a different set of work that they're doing, and you have to know how to apply what your requirements are on the job site to their specific trade. And on top of that, you all have to work with corporate to ensure that you have the right budget and that everybody is aligned behind you. It's a tough job that you all have to. I think that we're very lucky today to have someone presenting to us that has faced these challenges. I saw that he has a significant history list here of experience. He looks a lot younger than he is, but the experience is there. I'm not going to put you in a tough spot, Winston. You're good. So I'd like to invite Winston Newman. Many of you know Winston from being here at our safety sessions. He's a member of our safety committee. I'm very grateful that he is going to be sharing his experience with us. Winston is currently working as the safety director at Kaufman Lynn Construction, where that experience is working, and he's going to be sharing that with us today. So without further ado, Mr. Newman, clap it up. And I'm going to make sure we get the handshake on camera. There we go.
Thank you, Carlos.
Give me a second. Let me get you up.
Good. Just a little bit of background. I put this PowerPoint together for a national leadership conference. I presented it in Dallas just a, regular phone call from the office, someone I picked up, I normally go to spam, and they invited me to speak, and the conversation kind of built where I actually, I took the opportunity. He gave me the topic, and I the items from my history. It kind of came there. Once I came back from Dallas, I did present at the agency for my third time presenting this topic. No way in an effort to tell you guys how to construct a safety program. You guys got way more experience than me, but there are certain caveats of efficiency and effectiveness that I kind of took from my experiences working for some of the best PCs in the area. From Turner, 7 years with Turner, 7 years with Balfour. I was with an insurance carrier, and then 3 years with Kast, and now here I am at Kaufman. So, with that being said, let's get to the overview. And please, if you guys have any questions, or if you want to chime in, I welcome it. The conversation is definitely appreciated. So what we're going to be looking at today is an overview of the conversation. We're going to be understanding where executive priorities lie, right? So you can align your safety strategies and your priorities. We're also going to look at a roadmap of strong safety policies at project and organizational level. And we're going to look at what you need to do as far as a roadmap of, continuing that policy development and continuing that information input, right? So with that being said, let me ask you, how many people here are actually overseeing the safety program of their own, right? And then out of those people, how many people here have approached leadership to inspire a new initiative, to put a new initiative in place and been turned down for that? Right? Very, very common, right? That's more opposition than not, right? More often than not, I find that a lot of the headwind we receive from putting new initiatives in place really comes from just a language barrier, and not the traditional language barrier we're talking about, as far as English, Spanish, but really conveying your importance and your history and what you know into terms they're familiar with. More often than not, leadership of companies, they come from a PM role, project management role, and that role kind of crafts you to, put financial strategy in place, right? Our language is more so regulation, right? Regulation does a very poor job of explaining itself, whereas financial strategy, you become efficient at doing the most logical thing, right? So unless you speak their language, a lot of times there's a language barrier. Sometimes their no isn't a no. Sometimes their no is, may not understand the terms, and they don't care to understand it. So you got to put it in terms they understand, which may include some financial background, right? Another hindrance to the initiatives that we push could be lack of understanding of organizational mission. Everyone in this room, how many GCs in the room? I work for a GC. Every GC I work for, and everyone, they have different goals and missions, right? They don't want to all operate in the same spot, right? Have you guys ever heard the term the sweet spot, right? Turner sweet spots are 100 million to 250 million. That's what they like to go after. Masco the same. Kaufman Lynn, we don't really care to go after that. Our sweet spot may be from 20 million to 150. Also understand some companies want to grow. I've been part of companies that say, hey, we made $1 billion this year, let's go for 1.3. And that's always been the trend for the big boys. Some companies don't want to grow. Some companies are comfortable with the revenue they make, and they have a profit they're good at. They don't want to grow. All that really affects your safety plan and how you guys orchestrate that plan. So understanding the company's mission, the strategy, where they lie is very important to where you're at, right? So before you even approach leadership, do you understand where the company wants to go? And then sometimes what I also see as a hindrance is that we become too grounded in our own experiences. All of us, we've seen the worst of the worst. That's what we do, right? We oversee job sites, we see death and injuries, and that's kind of our metric. How many injuries, how many deaths, right? So our experiences are great, but a lot of times we can become too inflexible as we go from employer to employer, taking those tricks along the way that we don't, at a certain point, we don't listen to our new employer and what they need, right? So that can affect your decision-making, that can affect how the policy reads that you're trying to put into place. All in all, we want to have a blended conversation of regulation, right, what your passion is, and also the financial strategy of the company. Because at our level, that's what we're doing. We're administrators, and we're part of that overall plan of financial strategy, all right? So with that being said, let's take a little bit, deeper dive into the regulation that kind of drives us. OSHA is, of course, the guys that we look to, and they say that we got to have a written, effective plan in place, right? An effective safety plan. It has to have, I mean, I just took excerpts out of what you guys are very familiar with this. That plan has to have frequent and regular inspections by a competent person. And lastly, it has to identify and eliminate predictable and existing hazards, right? And what I see when I read that is a lot of vagueness. There's only two words that really stand out as strong direction, and that's must and written. Effective is a little vague. What is effective? What's effective to you is not effective to me, depending on experience level. The same can be said for frequent and regular inspections. What's frequent and regular for you as a subcontractor may not be frequent and regular for me. So, and you know, in a company will approach you as a safety director and put these, you know, caveats on your plate, not really giving you that direction. So for a company to put that much risk on your plate, you guys not understand that, or they not understand that frequent and regular, right? Or these vague terms could land you in a very hot seat, depending how you write your plan. So with all that vagueness and with all that openness, you know, it leaves a lot to be said, right? So as we write our policies and as we come up with our plans, we have to make sure that you embed a certain effectiveness in there that if you were to walk away, you know, someone else can take that driver's seat and know what to do and know how to follow the plan. That's one of the kind of drivers. As I ask myself the question, as I take my initiative that I want to approach leadership with, I write it in such a way that if I were to vacate, can the next person, even without experience, clearly execute? And that kind of builds a layer of effectiveness in there. But how many people have you guys, as you came up through the ranks, you had a supervisor or you were with the organization that enforced something, you didn't know where to find it. It wasn't written down. It was kind of maybe the culture, but kind of not, you know, we all experienced that. They kind of back of the pocket, you know, safety director said, do this, and it doesn't really exist, right? That's more of an emotional whim, right? We don't want to introduce that. So one of the first things I do when I have a priority, I write it down, right? Because once it's written, you can refer back to it, you can build on it. When you compile it, it builds a foundation, right? If they turn me down this year with this, I may approach them next year and I may tweak that same initiative and say, hey, here it is with a little bit more different twist on it. So once it's compiled, it has a foundation, and when it has a foundation, a formalization, it can grow, right? So definitely write down all the ideas that you have, write down all the things that are passionate. Don't give up on it, because a no one year may not be a no the next. Writing down your priorities also allows for a method of development, right? As you push your policy through, one may be successful, you can follow that trend, you can follow that path that you did. But it also allows things to be tracked, measured, and held accountable, right? How can you hold someone accountable when you went to a job site and you pounded on your desk and you said, team A, B, C, don't do this again, they got it, they understand it, but that only lives with that team. Once you leave the job site, they heard about it, and that job site heard about it, but for the most part, 80% of your company don't know what you're talking about. They never heard it, right? So writing it down does allow things to be tracked, measured, and referenced, right? Even as a training tool, right? You doing it and you saying it, and if I give this presentation tomorrow, it'll sound a different way. Written it down allows it to be referenced, and that's very important when it comes to accountability. So, you know, the priorities turn into policies and SOPs and you know, when you're doing policy development, you really want to outline a couple of things. Who is your audience, right? Are we talking to the workers? Are we talking to superintendents? Are we talking to leadership? Are we talking to different regions? You know, Kaufman Lynn, we operate in North Carolina, different building codes, different framing structures, right? Different structures, right? All together versus South Florida. So kind of keep that in mind. You know, identifying your audience allows you to be more exacting, and it allows you to kind of pull a specific type of data from that, right? And these policies are guardrails in your company. So as they're hit and dinged, it allows you to pull a certain information. We're going to get more into that later. What are your organizational risks? Being new to Kaufman Lynn, I'm 18 months into the role. I've never been a part of a commercial wood frame project, and seeing how, you know, once you step outside the South Florida footprint, you go to the West Coast of Florida and everything's stick-built, Orlando, North Carolina. So that invites a different kind of exposure and risk. You know, I had to learn a lot about NFPA and the fire risk and fire codes versus, you know, concrete, right? You don't have to worry about that until we're doing the drywall stage. Everything is really not combustible. So you have to kind of, you know, keep that in mind. What is your overall organizational risk? Are you guys near the public a lot? Are you guys interact with the environment where EPA comes into it? Your historical things that you're passionate about, it's important. I don't want to cast away that your firmness and your experience doesn't lie anywhere. Of course, your historical experience are very important, just as well as the company's historical experiences. So as you approach leadership with these initiatives, a lot of times they could be saying no, or they may give you a hard time, but they may know things that they don't share with everyone, and they may not want to be positioned in that environment. That's why it's good that we cannot give up, don't take it personal. But your historical experiences may need to be expanded to reach that audience, right? So some things I had done when I began the policy, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have anyone to lean on. I was cast into a role, and I stabbed at it. I created individual policies for better reference. The human mind relates to a main topic versus just a list, right? I've seen things that long list, and it just wasn't easily referenced. Be sure to address all of your concerns, your historical concerns, and OSHA's expectation in your policy. Put as much information in there. Let leadership feed it out. Let the actual evolution of the document read certain things, and you end up with as much as what you want. But your historical expectations should be in there. And then what I kind of did to self-check myself, I put together a corporate safety committee from the chief legal officer, the executive vice president, down to the vice presidents and senior vice presidents, and even certain lead PMs and lead supers to bring that field experience in. And I circulated all the documents as I created them. And I got the field emotional, no, that's not, I don't like, and I got legal perspective, right? And it was very good, right? And then once I did that, I even created a second review group of this another select people, and we kind of got their take on it. And it educated me, and it was a good experience, right? So that's very important. Overall, let's take a look at a policy and some of the things that we're talking about, and you're going to see how this effectiveness actually builds into your overall plan. Some things here, this is an example of my safety inspection policy. Remember in the beginning of the conversation, OSHA said what? They needed what? Frequent and irregular inspections. Where does your plan identify how you guys inspect, and what is frequent and what is regular? How do you pass that on to the guys that you hire as far as, expectation, right? You fired him because he wasn't walking the job a lot. Well, he goes, well, I don't know, it wasn't written anywhere, right? So this safety plan, it talks about what frequent and regular is. It talks about once the inspection is done, who handles the inspection, and then how the items are closed out. There's a procedure, right? So if you don't do it the right way, you didn't attack the picture, it kind of says attack the picture, right? So, here, boom, everything is ironed out, the time frames, but also we talked about some, administrative controls. Here's a version number so I can track year to year, because as you audit your program, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be better ways of doing it, or things aren't going to work out. So you can kind of reference that. The statement identifies the overall tone of the document and who is addressing, and then these are the parameters. The parameters kind of talk about the triggers of the document, what triggers that document to kind of go into play, right? So, you can organize it many different ways, but the more information, the more controls that you embed in there, the more data that's going to have to come back, and we're going to need that data, as you guys are going to see. Has anybody ever had, who in the room has kids, and you ever had a kid that approached you and asked for a large sum of money? Nothing crazy, but nothing crazy to make them look like,
Like college?
by large, yeah, right. Enough to grab your concern and make you, take it serious for a second. Well, that's kind of how we look when we approach leadership for a new initiative and not have that proper background, right? They look at us and, like you are the new initiative, solve it, right? So, we're going to see that all the things that we embed in our safety plan and our document are going to start coming back. They're going to start pinging, right? As you monitor your program, as emails come in, you're going to start seeing metrics come back, right? So it's very important that you train the staff on these policies, right? Don't just create an initiative and not have a formal training in place to notify every employee who's under the parameters of those documents. So I went around to each job site and I did lunch and learn on the new policies that affect them. This section here more so identifies the policies that affect staff, and then this is talking to the construction workers. I separated my audience, right? So here I am training them on these policies. I had them do a sign-in sheet that they understood, and then we'll see how that kind of plays in later, but definitely, formalize that training. And then I created a series of inspections and meetings, and I embedded all the concerns of leadership, all my prior experiences and their OSHA expectations in those documents, right? So as they go out and they checklist the inspections, I'm getting live good information back. And it develops a layer of consistency and control to make sure leadership's concerns are being validated. It's good to hear when you approach them and they mentioned something that was something that they often forgot about, or another person forgot about. And when you approach them and tell them that it was handled and you looked at it, it's a good feeling. So as the data's coming in, you're going to be getting information. You're going to see your program fail. You may see maybe a staff issue, whether it's safety or operational staff. You're going to see maybe a procedural gap, maybe you clearly explain something, or a scope gap. But overall, track those and make the adjustments next year. But now that we got data coming in, we're going to need to know a way to channel that data, right? So I like to call these the guards. What I did is I went to the financial service sector and I used some tools that they use to kind of monitor risk and everything. I kind of minimized it for our use. We don't need to be that exacting, but when we look at the company's vision and the company's mission statement, we can actually build a vision statement and a mission for our department, right? And that's what a critical success factor is. You look at the company's goals and where they want to go, and then you actually align your safety department with them. If not, you're going to always be in contention, right? So your critical success factors are things, it's an activity an organization must perform to achieve a goal. It's a strategic objective, right? Zero harm for Balfour Beatty, right? So you have these departmental vision statements. Well, all I did was create guardrails around them, and I kind of gave some examples, right? So what are some broad, high-level goals for your company that you don't see changing year to year? How about no injuries to the public, right? We should never injure the public. So if we come into a decision that might happen, we come to a stop. And that's just the culture of the company. If it's not abided by, you react quickly. No deaths. If there's an activity that may, suggest there could be a hint of that type of harm, we don't take it, right? We don't know what that looks like. How many times as a safety manager, the superintendent told you to walk away and let them do an activity? Well, if you remember this, you may say, no, I want to be here. Don't worry. I'm not going to stop you. I'll just make sure you're good, right? No public utility rights. This is where a lot of companies right now, we risk it. We risk it. As real estate starts to shrink, we're building more in, these infield urban sites. Why not do a GPR on every site? That's, if it's virgin land, we still hit. There's still stuff when they say it's virgin land, right? You ever take out a very expensive utility? We had a job site in my prior employer in Hialeah, right? We were building 3, 5-story buildings. And I mean, Hialeah off of Okeechobee, right outside the gate, sidewalk, 8 feet down, ran the JP5 fuel line, which is jet fuel for the Miami International Airport. It's piped, and it goes right to the Miami International Airport. But in Fort Lauderdale, they have the trains that kind of constantly feed them. This is underground, anyway. Can you imagine the views? Can you imagine what could happen to your company if you hit that? So, just doing everything possible because it's an overall high-level goal. No preventable OSHA citations. They're all kind of, never want that. What do you mean preventables? Well, if it's identified in your plan and you train them on it, that's preventable, all right? If it's not, well, I can't really discipline. It's a growth for the company. That's how we separate that. And then no recordable injuries to staff. As a GC, you got to decide, do your guys, or you let your guys do work, or they're not. And I had to purposely define it, and actually I had to let the superintendent go because he just kept jumping in the skid steer and doing work for himself because the sub wouldn't listen. Even though the sub wouldn't listen, we have a hard stance. You can't. Because, as we all know, a recordable or injury, and I even seen, a disability from a senior superintendent because he was in a piece of equipment, he was ejected, right? And it's hurting the company financially pretty hard. So, just having a strong stance on what you believe in and what you want to protect the company with, get it approved, talk about it, And that gives you your goal. Now that we have our goal, let's look at some guardrails. And I always tell my kids, yes, sir.
So this is Rocky with Baby saying we do insurance and a lot of the carriers, but a lot of they find that companies that offer this small lost dollars, they actually have an accountability that's kind of just like the success factor that was mentioned and build out. That most companies set up the bonus for at the completion of a project, but that bonus should actually be tied to critical success factors and others. So this is actually a good nucleus. And why I mentioned that with the loss ratio, like I would have thought if a company had a safety committee already established, that would probably lead to less losses. Actually, the accountability program, the formalized return work program.
Wow.
But anyway, that critical success factor is very vital, and that's what you can direct accountability program. Voter, want to be held accountable for that. Want to pick, not going to take that chance on the public.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So diving in, I always tell my kids, you know, I don't respond to all of those silly things. I got two boys, 12 and 13 years old. You know, they're young boys, but they're good kids. But you know, kids make bad decisions. I'm gonna let you explore that. As long as I see you're not getting hurt with it, you're not hurting anyone else, I'm gonna let you bump your head. That's the way you're gonna learn, right? That's a guardrail, right? Those are my two guardrails. My goal is to get you to college and make you successful. And if you bump my guardrails, I react. Otherwise, you know, be a kid, right? So that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna look at two different guardrails we're gonna put in our safety plan. And when these are hit, you react, right? You react and you're consistent with it and you document it and we use that information. But one of the tools for the guardrails is called the key performance indicator. The key performance indicator is part of this tool I got from this financial service industry. It measures the performance of a specific goal or activity. So we're looking at activities that relate to our critical success factors. What's our overall goals? We're gonna look at activities to make sure, right? We said a critical success factor is no utility strikes, no public utility strikes. That saves a little money, right? So if I'm only looking at public utility strikes, if I'm on private property, I may not include the GPR. But if that's a goal of mine, right? One of the key performance indicators I could put there is if a GPR is not done on a job that's described that in the parameters of that document, I react and I document it. But it's attainable. It's not something, you're not setting the bar so high that everyone's failing over this metric that you assign. It's a lagging metric, right? And it helps you gauge the activities of the critical success factor. So let's look at one. One of the indicators out of the inspection reports that come out through the field as your safety managers are doing inspections, you know, we have a pass-fail rate, right? Bad, good, green, red, whatever it may be. If anything comes back over at under 80%, I look at it. I take a strong look. We can't look at every inspection, but if you can, those you probably could look at. You know, whatever you assign, it could be 90, it could be 70. You know the culture of your company, but give yourself a metric, right? If a job site has 3 sub-80 inspection reports over 3 months, maybe that's a different action, right? Another one is if a single inspection report has over 5 observations. Observations are open items, things they didn't take care of. Why are there so many things unsolved? Why are there penetrations left? Or why are the guardrails down? If there's 5, serious things that safety manager couldn't solve before he disembarked from that job site and they left it on the team to solve, that may be a concern. That's something that's telling you that something's amiss, right? If the project observation log, if those open items have any failed expiration dates, that's a serious too. You know, if you give a team a week to put handrails up, and the next time we go out and handrails aren't up, for whatever reason, you gotta hold a bar and make them accountable, right? Right. And lastly, another way we should respond, and these are just examples, and they're open for discussion. I'd like to hear if you guys got any. If you have an incident resulting in 2 recordables at the same time in one incident, or an admittance to a hospital, or a near miss or injury to the public, a near miss or injury to the public, or a claim that's, for me, smaller, sweet spot, you know, smaller revenues, 5,000. Claim resulted with 5,000, I'm gonna investigate. I'm gonna have a documented follow-up on all these items. I'm tracking, right? Every time an email comes through and I see something that triggers that, I'm gonna respond to it. It could be an email, hey, what's going on here? Why did this happen? Or it could be, you know, I'm gonna visit the job and I'm gonna do my own inspection. But I'm documenting everything and I'm putting it to the side for a good reason. So we have the left guardrail, laggy indicator, right guardrail is gonna be what? It's gonna be a leading indicator. So we're gonna use the key risk indicator. So the other one's a key performance indicator. This is a key risk indicator, and it tells you about the potential risk that could jeopardize your goals, your critical success factors. It's a measure of risk and volatility, the likelihood of something to happen, right? So we've been predictive in nature, right? So let's look at a couple examples and you know, chime in if you guys have any. But you know, if you have a project and you're sitting down at a pre-con meeting and they say, hey man, this is gonna be a difficult schedule, we gotta push hard, we gotta accelerate all these key terms. What quality, safety, and time, right? That's something I'm gonna look into, right? Maybe staff it a different way, right? Maybe if the job missed a milestone and they're going to double shift, maybe you put a safety manager at the job site. You got to respond to it in a different way. It's going to overall help your performance. If you have an untenured team, so if the PM is new and the lead super is new, they don't know company rules. You know, maybe you put another guy out there, you do double coverage, or you give them extra consideration. Maybe you set them up with a safety manager for 3 months, and then you can do rotations, or you know, whatever the case may be. But an untenured team don't have the blood of the company. Sometimes their decision making wanes. You know, we don't know why they want to catch, right? Projects that have 0 lot line, right? So falling objects, right? I'm gonna look at that. 0 lot line also may entail I don't have any laydown. Jobs with no laydown, you know, the superintendents are frustrated, right? It's a constant thought. What do I do with the forms? I have no way to bring truck, whatever the case is. You got to give it extra consideration. Anybody have any examples? What about this one? Weak trade partners. Companies sometimes get in bed with weak trade partners just because they're a little bit cheaper or availability for whatever reason. What is weak? Or ocean history, you know, high claims. What is weak? Word on the street, whatever the case may be, right? Or guess what? Excessive tiering. If you have a sub on your job, that I promise you, one of my experiences are block mason on the job was under the shell contract. That's a new thing. That's a pretty standard thing now. But this block mason subbed out through labor. He just supplied the equipment. I'm talking about the literal hand carts and all that. He subbed out the material, and then he subbed out the labor. 3 different guys doing one guy's job, right? How much control do you have over tiering? That's 5 tiers just for one trade, right? So excessive tiering, how do you respond to that? Man. I love the plug. I love it. You know, the one thing I instituted, I said, fine, if you want a tier, but for every tier after the second tier, I want a non-working supervisor on site full time. All right, tier as much as you want. I just need someone to talk to, and I need to be able to commit. So I'm not emotional with it, but I'm making that pathway for my company to have effective communication for them to be able to respond. Because by the time you got to the second or third tier, none of the guys spoke English, and I don't speak Spanish. Sam does, but I don't.
Or you get the answer, but I know.
Yeah. So on that same job where we had so many tiers of the block mason, we had a very bad injury where we had a mason and the mason accelerated the schedule where they got up into the reshored floors, and he was pulling this mechanical, and the mechanical engine cart that had, what is it called? The block cart? A what? A block buggy? Yeah, he was pulling that, and he was pulling it behind, it was operating, and his finger got slammed in between a post shore and the buggy. Why? He didn't have any brakes. And so all that tearing led to a subcontractor. For him to get profit on that job, he had to, for some reason, get someone who wasn't really established and they have older equipment. It exposed a whole bunch of stuff, right? Should never been on the job, really. Excessive utilities in or near or adjacent. We have a job site right now that it used to be a Walmart, and the Walmart's not there anymore. We have a bank outside there. And we lifted up the asphalt, keyword asphalt already, right? They didn't do a GPO, $1,500. They didn't do a GPO, right? So fight with this, but these are things on either side that as they hit your desk, document it. Save that email that you sent out. It could just be an email, it could be a phone call. Document it. At the end of the year, you can go to leadership and you say, look this is what I've done. Those big case, remember that. This is how I handle it. Look, this is my workload. It keeps you from a day-to-day giving you a workload, but at the end of the year, it also kind of validates the things they didn't even know about that you responded to. So when you're at the appraisal table, you can now actually show your values, right? But more so, the metrics are going to be coming into your office, and they're going to be coming in from incident reports. A program audit could be you going out yourself and doing an inspection because you want to see for yourself, or it could be the annual inspection that you assign yourself. It's coming in from your dashboard, it's coming in from your loss runs. Loss runs are a great way not only to find out the history of the company that you know about, but what things you don't know about as well. And then it's a great way to find out what your real risks are, because they have a history of those same repeated accidents, and every company is a little bit different, right? From GC to GC that only does high rise, even them are different, right? So your loss runs will expose you to things that you can predict what you need to solve for, right? So all of that, as you're getting this information and you're documenting everything, it gives you what? It gives you a good target to be able to formulate your conversation with leadership to say, hey, I have an initiative I want you to hear about. And so, yeah, what is it? Like they always do, right? I want to push this because based on our history of loss runs and based on what I responded to for the last 2 years, I think something's going to happen. And then history kind of shows, industry trends also show that, this is a common occurrence. So here's my plan. Now you have their attention, right? You put some numbers behind it and statistics, you have their attention. You're at their seat now, right? So those are the tools feeding yourself. This is some tools to respond to all the information. Verbal written warnings, right? Audits by you. If you go out, you can say, listen, you ever been in the hot seat and the boss say, hey, did you know about that? Yeah, I did. I went out there on that date and I actually did something myself, and here's how I follow up with it. If you don't like what you see, you can sign an action plan specifically for that job site team. We know about action plans for subcontractors, right? If we have a weak sub that's coming aboard that has poor OSHA history, I can develop an action plan for them. Mr. flooring contractor, you have a lot of cut fingers from your history. OSHA citation, here's the action plan. On my job site for this job site, or whatever, my company, you're gonna wear cut resistant gloves, level 3 every time. You're gonna use this type of knife. There we go, see Milwaukee? Yeah, you're gonna use this, or you can't use this type of knife. They had to, well, you can do an action plan for your own staff, right? You can do an action plan for your own staff. Because we know sometimes the troublesome superintendents or the PMs that don't want to get out of the office that are they're assigned to contribute this as well. So, that's a tool. And it's not hard to develop. All right, you sit down with HR and they'll be guided to put something in place. When we had to let go of the superintendent for jumping in equipment, turns out human resources kind of wanted them to go on anyways, right? Because, for other reasons, but they leaned on my policy to kind of, push the movement or another further goal. Visits by senior leadership. Sometimes you can say, listen, I went out there twice. I'm not getting the traction I need, or hey, you need to look at this. I want you to look at it. Drop them in. They're in charge of safety too. Have leadership go out there and ask them, hey, what's going on with this? And just the attention, just the presence and them asking will change the tone of that job site. If you respond to an email and there's someone that's just not getting it, you can send him or the policy and sit down with them and reread it and have him sign it and make sure that you didn't understand the first time. You may have misunderstood, but now I personally explained it, and so that's a documented soft point, right? Improvement plan for the job site. I mean, that's sophistication in itself to sit down at the end of the year and tell your team, your leadership team and your appraisal that you had two improvement plans for 2 different job sites and you were part of that team's success, right? This is what I didn't even know about it. Yep, here it is. Here's the emails behind it. Here's the plan, and they did a great job in A, B, and C. So that's an important point. And then finally, sometimes the fingers point right back at you. Sometimes you're not as good as you thought you were. That plan wasn't as good as what you thought it was. It's okay. That was just first step. Let's revisit. I'm gonna sit down with a senior super or another operational guy. I'm gonna get someone who doesn't like the policy. Tell me why. Tell me why. And we'll work through it. And then I'll go through the same channel. I'll ask as many people, right? I want my plan not to fit me. My experiences change every day, right? I want it to fit well with the company so I don't take anything to heart and I get as much input as I can, right? So all that we're doing, we have the guardrail set up, right? We have the guardrail set up. We have information pinging, and every time it hits a guardrail, we're responding. And all that's done in an effort to really minimize this. We all know about Hendricks triangle, right? For every 3,000 unsafe acts that you don't see and behaviors that you don't see in conditions, 300 of those are turn into near misses. Out of those 300 near misses, only 5% was reported to you. 29 is going to turn into a major accident. Out of that major injury, 1 is going to turn into being on the news, right? So if we can just take a fraction out of that, that can prolong your career, that can prolong the company's reputation, and keep everyone out, right? So all this is great. And Rocky, beat me to the punch. All this information is great. Your department having a critical success factor or a high level goal, it turns into your next step. And I learned this because I worked for an insurance carrier. A lot of times we visit policyholders, which were general contractors, and they had a safety plan, but there were so many things on lost run reports. It wasn't being controlled, right? Nothing's changing every year. The insurance companies are losing money. So we'll visit and we'll say, listen, you need an accountability plan. And that's what Rocky touched on, right? So all of this, you have set the bones, the structure, you have everything for the next step to go ahead and write an accountability plan. And that's my next step. And when I do so, I'd like to come back and share that with you guys and kind of get your input, right? But all being said and done, it was a great education going through what I went through, and I look forward to seeing you guys up here. There's so much knowledge in this room. I look forward to seeing you guys up here telling me where you're great at, and what you learned, sharing that experience. Because in South Florida, I think we really do have some of the best in the industry. Maybe I know Vegas and New York are big, and maybe a little bit of Texas, but we're great too. So don't be shy about sharing your experience and teaching us something.
Thank you for sharing that knowledge with us. I'm always struck because I was talking about my safety group, and I think sometimes my board of directors gets upset. It's like, why don't you talk about us like that? But you all really are a family. Your willingness to share insights that you've gained, there's a very selfless nature about you all in safety, and I think a lot of it maybe has to do with you guys are just one big struggle session when we get together here. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. I really appreciate that this room is open to sharing, not just in presentation, but in conversations when we're hanging out before the sessions get started and when we're hanging out afterwards. So thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, that the Miami Metro is the second in the United States with skyscrapers under construction right now.
Who's first? I thought we were. New York still first.
We were first.
No, I think I'm gonna check out my several. Number one, thank you for bringing that up.
Toronto in Canada is the first one. Vancouver and New York and Miami.
And here's another reality. You bring up South Florida, but we have several safety directors in this room that are handling projects in South Florida, in Central Florida, in the Tampa St. Petersburg area, along the Gulf Coast. I have a couple that are in Jacksonville, not just in South Florida. I mean, you all, again, and not just the brotherhood portion of it, but the fact of volume of work that you all carry, because I know that, forget it, in construction, we talk about the need for folks coming into the workforce on the safety side. That is a dire. I mean, I think I could probably multiply this room ×3 and there'd still be a ton of very important openings that need qualified folks to fill them. So thank you very much, sir. I'm looking forward to the second part of the presentation. So you kind of put yourself on the spot now. So thanks again to Winston for doing it. By the way, it's not, you were surprised by Sam knowing Spanish? Because nobody knows his real name is Samuel Anderson, okay? That's his name, Samuel Anderson. So from Samuel Anderson, I want to introduce, I don't even have my sheet. I don't need a sheet to introduce this person. Kevin Cannon is the Senior Director of Safety and Risk at Associated General Contractors of America. You all know him. I asked him to join us. Kevin, you can feel free to look at Kevin right there. Could we spotlight Kevin, Vanessa? I invited Kevin to come on board because we had found out, and number one, before let me just remind you all, this will be shared on YouTube. So when we do our sharing session, just keep that in mind. Maybe let's not get into too many specifics. Those of you who are AGC members, we will be having a closed door session that I will announce in a couple weeks. I'm waiting to get some additional information from some key players before we put that together, but that will be a contractors only member session that we do. So let me set the stage, Kevin, really quickly. And again, thank you for joining us on such short notice. I appreciate it. About 2-3 weeks ago, let me back up. You all know the battle that we had on heat ordinance here. Well, that was going on. AGC of America was battling on a change of standards at AGC with the Department of Labor regarding accompanied inspections, where a third party would be able to accompany the CSHO on their inspection of your site. Well, we won the fight regarding heat ordinance. Not only did we stop it in Miami-Dade County, we stopped it statewide. Accompanied inspections got through, I believe it was in May, where they started, right? In that time, we had kind of been looking out to see what was going to happen. We figured the group that we had battled, called We Count, as you recall, they're affiliated with the Labor's International Union of North America. They had political backing from the SEIU and local trade unions in Miami-Dade County for their effort, as well as Mayor Daniela Levine Cava's office and her team, right? So it seems that in the past 3 weeks, we've had 3 nurseries that have gotten accompanied inspections. The group that has been coming out of those inspections has been We Count. Seeing as agriculture and construction were the 2 targeted industries, we fully expect that there'll be some construction sites that will be getting those visits. So I wanted us to close out today with a discussion on this, for us to share information if we have it. I obviously will be coming to you with that, but I brought Kevin over just to hear how things are going with AGC of America on the case fighting this, and if he's heard anything nationally that we should be aware of. And for you all, frankly, to give him information that he can then take to our national partners. So, Mr. Cannon, thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, everyone. Good presentation, Winston. Very informative, and I'd have to agree with both Winston and Carlos that AGC has some of the best safety and health professionals the industry can offer. And just to be quick, I know we're up against time. The rule Carlos is referring to, is referred to as the walk around designation process for employee representatives. And just real quick, prior to May 1st of this year, employee representatives, as per the regulation, were to be employees of the employer with some special exceptions, and they identified safety engineers, industrial hygienists as those who could serve as a third party. OSHA, their position was that that was just to provide examples of the types of individuals that could serve as third-party reps, but not in any case did they say they were going to be on behalf of the employee. But now with the rule change, as Carlos mentioned, regarding the 3 inspections, we anticipate seeing more of these third parties. There's really no justification for it. OSHA themselves say that, it's not really, it's more administrative and procedural than really addressing, a fall hazard, crane hazard, or any of the other physical hazards that we typically find on construction sites. And, one of the things that, Carlos mentioned is that, we were opposed to this from the beginning, submitted comments expressing those concerns for a variety of reasons. Just to touch on a few, well, let me back up and say that these third parties can pretty much be anyone. They identify individuals such as community activists, union representatives at a non-union setting, let's say faith-based leaders. And, the reason that they say these individuals are important to aid in the conduct of an inspection is that they may bring skills such as language skills, or they may understand the workforce culture better than the compliance officer might. So, we anticipate, seeing a little bit more of this. We've not heard of any members at this point who have had that experience. So, as Carlos said, if you find yourself in the position where you have to engage with a compliance officer regarding, the invitation of a third party onto your project sites, it would be good for us to know. We're involved in litigation at this point. We joined the effort with, it's led by the U.S. Chamber, but there's also, other construction associations involved. And at this point, we filed our motion for summary judgment. The government filed their response, and now we have, I'd say, about 2 weeks before we have to respond to what they submitted. In the meantime, there's really, no silver bullet as to how to avoid these types of, interactions with the compliance officers as well as the third party. But one of the most important things is, and again, I would assume many of you have safety and health committees. So, or if you've not thought about a process for identifying who that employee representative might be, I would consider it. It can be a member of your safety committees. It can be, anyone that you choose to appoint. But I think it would be more difficult for the compliance officer to bring on a third party when there's one already been identified by your workforce or your crews. The other thing is, there's really no recourse for the contractor. You can question the need for it. You can refuse entry. But, OSHA's clear is that, their next step would be, they're not just going to walk away and say, okay, Kevin said that they don't want the third party on. They would go through the process of reaching out to the regional solicitor and starting the process for administrative warrant. So, again, I would revisit any policies as far as outside visitors are concerned. I would look at the process by which, you yourself appoints an employee representative. In my view, that would negate the need for a third-party rep. If the justification is because of any type of language barrier, identify someone that could serve as the interpreter on behalf of you, the contractor or specialty contractor. So, those are some of the points that, that we've been discussing. Non-disclosure agreements, if there's a potential for trade secrets to be disclosed. Again, there's no silver bullet to denying access, but I think if you have sound policies and procedures in place, I think you have a stronger defense. That's really it at this point, Carlos. Nothing really to report on. Well, other than the government's response to, our initial filing of our motion for summary judgment. judgment. We're just waiting now for, the coalition to draft our response. We should have that in the next week or so. And we'll continue down that, that litigation process and take it to the next phase.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I think the message here is talk to your attorneys. Make sure everybody is involved and understands what's going on. Have your procedures in place. Because I feel this is going to be something that's happening. This group that we confronted once is very interested in being a change maker and being the first to push these policies. And I think that we'll be seeing it on our construction sites soon enough. So again, Kevin nor I are attorneys, but as I understand it, in order for this group to walk on, at least 2 employees have to agree to them being their third party. So what does this tell me? This tells me that you all on your job site dealing with 30 trade contractors on a big high rise better start talking to your subs and educating them on this issue. Okay.
And thing to add, there's really no limit to the number of these third-party representatives. So on a multi-employer job site, it can, become really disruptive. But as Carlos said, I would, revisit your inspection, how you are educating and training your field crews as far as handling OSHA inspections, get them prepared in advance, because again, this is going to show up. It's not an if, but a when.
Any questions for Kevin? I think he was pretty thorough. Okay, anybody have it? Yes, sir.
So just make sure we're all on the same book, same page, and we're on it. So if OSHA shows up with one of these other entities, we can allow the OSHA guy in and tell that entity not to enter the site.
No, again, neither one of us are attorneys, so we can't.
The question, Carlos?
So the question was, if the question was, can we tell OSHA they can come in, but the third party cannot? Correct. Yes.
Yeah, if the employees have, and again, one of the things that we argued was that there should be, as I would say, some, established process for identifying who this third party rep is. And OSHA said, in their response to our comments, that they've never had a rigid process. And, it seems to have been working, for the past 50 plus years. So they're not going to entertain incorporating one or establishing one at this point. So, if this individual has been identified as the employee representative, it's not, it's a package deal, I'll call it, for lack of better terms, so, they've been identified. OSHA, has accepted them as the third party rep. So, denying their entry and, would essentially be denying the entry of the compliance officer, which is, where I said, they would go through the process of obtaining the administrative warrant.
Doug Cohen, Kelly Cronenberg. I'm one of the non-lawyers, so I'm not going to provide a lawyer side of this, but certainly our team here, led by Gary Brown, heads up our construction, OSHA practice. He's a good person to run this question by. So if anybody does have questions in this regard, one of the people here that I would sort of recommend that.
What's his name again?
Gary Brown. Yeah, he's in trials. Coming here shortly, and drops off he was getting ready for, but certainly something to speak to this as a broader issue related to OSHA and inspectors there and things like that.
All right. Cool. Hey, thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate you having here, making the time for us. I hope that if anybody gets to visit, please give me a call. Let's make sure that we share it with AGC of America. They're out there fighting for us in the courts, and we appreciate it. Kevin, thanks again, man.
Thank you, Carlos, and appreciate the invitation as always.
Kevin, I know we got to schedule like an in-person with you when winter gets tough up there in Virginia. So like in January, February, we'll see if we can get you down here in person. We'll figure it out.
Yes, please do. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Have a great day. All right, folks. Hey, really quickly, because I'm sure some of you probably want to talk, and we'll do that off camera. Just want to remind you all that Safety Fair is coming up this year. It is going to be on October 19th. Okay, so plenty of time for us to get it set up. Our safety committee will be calling a meeting. We'll be looking for volunteers to teach. Just to refresh your memories, we do all of this training for free, right? Our goal is to get that third tier sub, to get their employees with some kind of safety training, to make life safer for them, to help their family out, and to help all the other people on the job site, right? That's what this event is about. So if you all can make some time, set aside a Saturday to volunteer, teach some certificate courses, it would be appreciated. We're always looking for materials there. We love giving out first aid cards. I think that's a very important training for us to offer. So if you or your organization can donate books, can donate materials, we would appreciate it. We're going to be back at Miami-Dade College North Campus. So there'll be a bit of a, almost a convention vibe there. So it'll be an opportunity for vendors to set up booths, to talk to folks. So if you know vendors that would like to sponsor, if you buy a lot of materials from someone, tell them, hey, I want you to come support this important thing that we're doing for the industry. We would appreciate it. So you'll see information for that going out soon. Golf tournament scheduled for November 8th and our CEO cocktail November 7th. Hopefully you all participate in what we're doing. I appreciate you all being here. I'll see you all next month, second Wednesday of every month, right here at Kelly Cronenberg. So thank you all very much. Have a great day, everybody.